If you're watching this, it isn't random. Something called you here, quiet as the hush between heartbeats, bright as a ribbon of sun on moving water. Maybe it was the way your coffee trembled on the drive this morning, how every light turned red like the city was daring you to slow down. Maybe it was the spreadsheet that wouldn't balance no matter how clean you made the formulas, or the text that didn't arrive and the meeting that moved, and the plan you tightened until your jaw ached. However you got here, the current found you. I'm not here to congratulate your grip. I'm here to show you the river under your life. You were raised on the gospel of the self-made, the bootstraps, the grind, the clean, heroic arc where willpower bends reality into shape. That story built your backbone. It also trained your hands to live white-knuckled on the wheel. So when reality moves like water, when it bends around your blueprints, when it answers late, when it refuses your deadlines, you don't think river, you think failure. You call it a bad day, a lack of discipline, a reason to double down, but listen, lean in a little closer. You're not failing. You're learning to flow. There's a difference between steering the boat and trying to bully the river. One is skill. The other is war. You've been taught to fight currents you can't see and to measure worth in how much force you can apply. But force is loud. Flow is intelligent, and intelligence prefers the soft turn of your wrist to the slam of your fist. Breathe with me for a moment. Shoulders down, tongue soft. Watch what's happening inside your chest when you stop arguing with the moment in front of you. Feel the pulse adjusting, like a canoe edging into the sweet spot where the water does half the work, not passive, not checked out, just aligned. When you grip for control, your mind zooms the lens until only one outcome stays in frame, and everything else collapses into noise. When you soften that grip, when you widen the lens, possibilities start shimmering again at the edges. Emails you didn't expect, people you randomly run into, the parking space that opens the exact second you stop cursing the lot. You call it coincidence. The river calls it instruction. You were taught to equate surrender with losing, but the kind of surrender I'm talking about isn't giving up. It's giving way. It's the difference between demanding a specific moment and choosing a specific frequency. Control tries to nail the world to your timeline. Frequency invites the world to meet you at your tone. Think about those days when everything clicks. The right song at the right mile, the right words at the right door, the right timing that you couldn't have scheduled if you tried. Those aren't accidents, those are alignment. They happen when the current and your inner state are in the same key. I know you've done everything right. You stacked credentials like sandbags against the flood. You read the books. You marked the goals. You hacked your morning routine, and still something underneath resists being pinned. That something isn't sabotaging you. It's wiser than the plan. It chooses timing over punishment, coherence over force. It slows you when speed would break you. It reroutes you when straight lines would cut you off from your own horizon. I could hand you more strategies, but I'd rather hand you a sound. Listen. There's a hush beneath your decisions, a low river note under the noise. Hear how it hums the moment you stop rehearsing answers in your head? Hear how it rises when you choose presence over panic? You don't need a brand new self, you need a quieter room inside the self you already have. In that room, the next step is almost boring in its clarity. Turn here. Call her. Wait. Now. That's the river speaking. It isn't mystical in the way you fear, it's practical in the way you crave. It offers steps, not sermons, but it doesn't shout over the volume of control. Let me tell you a small truth the grind never taught you. Life is not a locker that opens to brute force. It's a locker that opens to the right vibration. You can rattle the handle until your hands go numb, or you can choose the tone that slides the bolt with grace. You already know this. You've lived it in flashes. The meeting you entered relaxed and somehow led with ease. The conversation you stopped trying to win and suddenly understood. The weekend you left unplanned and somehow remembered who you are. Those were not the exceptions. Those were the clues the river has been trying to teach you your whole life. It taught you in childhood when your bike found its balance the moment you stopped death gripping the handlebars. It taught you in love when the person you chased receded and the one you met by accident felt like home. It taught you in work when the draft you let breathe overnight wrote itself in the morning. The lesson has never changed. Loosen, listen, and let the current show its shape. I'm not here to shame your ambition. Ambition is the oar, flow is the water. Without an oar, you drift. Without water, you grind your oar into the gravel. What changes tonight is the order. River first, stroke second. Let the frequency lead, let action follow. Ask better questions, not how do I control this, but what state brings this into harmony? Not how do I make them say yes, but what tone invites the truest yes. It will feel like weakness at first. It will feel like stepping back when the culture demands you step forward. But step back into what? Into sight. Into the wider picture, into the angle the river's been holding for you while you were busy building dams. And when fear says, if I don't grip this, I'll lose everything, answer gently, if I grip this, I'll lose the current. Because the river you fight is the same river you need. You don't have to become someone else to live this. All that's required is a small, precise subtraction. Remove the strain that blocks your listening. In practice, it looks like this. You pause before replying. You open your chest when you'd normally armor up. You let silence do half the talking. You trust the slight pull in your belly more than the old checklist that was written for a different day. It looks like assuming timing has wisdom even when your calendar doesn't. It looks like moving with the bend in the water rather than accusing the bend of betrayal. And then because you're brave and because you care, you act cleanly, simply without the tremor of forcing. This is not about drifting on a couch of spiritual slogans. You'll still send the email. You'll still show up early. You'll still train. But you won't spend your life shouting orders at a river that already knows the way home. If any part of you just exhaled, good. That sound is recognition. It means the dam you built to feel safe is ready to open a notch, not to flood you, but to feed you. The water behind it wasn't your enemy. It was your future waiting for permission. This is the beginning, not the verdict. Tonight, I'm not handing you a manual. I'm handing you a compass. You don't need to memorize every landmark. You just need to feel the slight turn when the needle lines up. And you already know the mantra, the one you repeat when the old story tries to yank you back into the grind. You're not failing. You're learning to flow. Say it until your shoulders believe you. Say it until your breath matches the river. Say it until the part of you that loves to control remembers it was born to steer, not to strangle. The current is here. It's not asking you to jump, it's asking you to listen. When you do, the banks widen, the water clears, and the life you've been trying to man-make starts to arrive like rain that was always on its way. This part exists to make you feel seen, to lay what you've been carrying out on the riverbank where the light is kind, so you can recognize yourself without judgment. You've been noticing things you used to dismiss, the way time stretches on the days you try to hold everything in place, the way it snaps tight when you finally unclench, how a random number like 333 shows up on your phone at the exact second you whisper, "I can't do this like this anymore." You wake before dawn for no sensible reason, pulse a little quick, mind rehearsing contingencies like a drummer counting in a song that never starts. You stare at the ceiling and feel the room hum. Not spooky, not dramatic, just present, like the air has a heartbeat. You feel people before they speak. A coworker opens their laptop and you already know the mood it brings into the room. A friend says, "I'm fine," and your body says, "No, you're not." And you're right, even though you didn't ask a single follow-up question. Crowds drain you faster than they used to. Small talk grates like sand in a soft shoe. And you find yourself craving open sky, trees, water, anything that doesn't want something from you. You plan to the millimeter, and yet one tiny variable, one delayed train, one muddled email, can flip your chest into a sudden weather system. Not every day, but often enough that you wonder if it's you. And then the weird part, on the days you soften, the days you choose one clean intention over 10 anxious tasks, reality gets cooperative doors open that weren't there yesterday. People answer emails you never sent. The song that finds you in the grocery store says something you asked in private. You used to call these things coincidences because that felt safe. Now they feel like a pattern you can't unsee. It's not that your life is falling apart, it's that your old way of steering has stopped making sense, and the river is asking you gently to shift from force to frequency. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not making it up because the internet told you to be spiritual. What's happening is closer to physics than to fantasy, closer to perception than to performance. You're waking up to the fact that your system is an instrument, and instruments tune before they play. You have days when your chest feels like a room you forgot to clean. Cluttered, noisy, crowded with old strategies. And you have days when a breeze moves through your ribs like a hymn, and everything lines up without you cracking the whip. You've started catching yourself mid-fix, fingers hovering above the keyboard ready to fire off a controlling reply, jaw tight, shoulders up. Then a pause, a breath, a question. What tone do I want to carry into this? And suddenly the email writes itself in a voice that doesn't escalate anything. You can feel your body's dashboard now. The tightness that means not this. The warmth that means yes, the sleepy heaviness that means wait. You notice your appetite changing, not just for food, but for input. The podcasts that used to hype you up now make your scalp buzz in a way that feels brittle. The videos that land are slower, a camera following a river at golden hour, a voice that doesn't sell anything, just names what your bones already know. Your calendar is the same, but time itself feels elastic. 5 frantic hours do less than 20 calm minutes, and you can't pretend otherwise. You're not lazy. You're not losing your edge. You're learning which edge cuts you and which edge carves something worth keeping. There are more clues, and you know them when I say them because you've lived them in secret. You sit down to work and your brain wants to sprint, but your body wants to align first. So you close your eyes and without meaning to, you picture water. Moving, patient, unconcerned with schedules, and a task that felt like static suddenly unknots in 3 clear steps. You run into someone you've been meaning to reach out to, and it feels too precise to label random. You feel pulled to take a different route home and catch a sunset that makes you forget what the hurry was for. You say no to one small thing you would have said yes to out of habit, and that single refusal gives you 2 hours of coherence you've been begging the world to give you. You cry in the driveway for no clear reason, and the tears are not crisis, they're release. Pressure leaving pipes that weren't built to hold it. You feel tender and strong in the same breath. You want to be handled gently by your own mind, and you're done with the voice that treats you like a machine. Your sleep is in negotiation with your spirit. Some nights you crash like a stone in deep water and wake heavier but honest. Some nights you surf the edge between dreaming and thinking and wake with a sentence you needed written in your head like a gift. You try to share these things and words fail, so you stop talking about it and wonder if silence is safer. Silence is fine, but isolation is a lie. Your experience isn't fringe, it's fluent, and the more fluent you get, the more mercy leaks into your day in places you didn't expect. You're starting to notice that plans don't calm you, states do. When you make a plan to take control, your chest tightens a little. When you choose a state and then let action rise from there, your chest opens. That opening is information. On days you lead with state, life meets you halfway. Traffic parts where you thought it would snarl, the line moves faster, the right words arrive mid-sentence. When you lead with control, life reflects your friction. The printer jams, the file corrupts, the cadence of the day turns clumsy. This isn't punishment, it's physics at the scale of a human life. Coherence attracts cooperation. Coherence starts in the body. Your fingers remember how to soften on the steering wheel. Your breath remembers how to leave and come back without permission slips. Your mind remembers it's allowed to witness without labeling everything a threat. And when people ask you what changed, you shrug because nothing did and everything did. You simply stopped negotiating with moments that were never up for negotiation. You stopped arguing with water. Of course, the fear still pops up. If I stop controlling, won't I fall apart? Notice how that question always comes wearing armor. Notice how it never arrives when you're actually in flow. It only shows up when you're about to choose it. That fear is old programming trying to keep you from exiting a loop. Thank it. Don't feed it. Let it say its piece and then ask a better question. What would feel coherent right now? Sometimes the answer is action. Make the call, send the pitch, put shoes on and go. Sometimes the answer is wait. Not procrastinate, wait, feel the difference. One leaks energy, the other builds it. Either way, you're not passive. You're precise. You're choosing a tone that invites life to harmonize with you instead of bracing against you every time you risk that kind of choosing. Even in micro ways, even just for the next 10 minutes. You collect evidence that the river is not your enemy, it's your infrastructure. People appeared, solutions emerged you couldn't have calculated. You call that taking a break. But really, you were removing yourself as the obstacle. You were releasing the measurement that kept everything collapsed. There's a reason your intuition is becoming more pronounced lately, sharper than it used to be. You feel the pull toward a choice before you can justify it. You sense tension in a conversation before a single word goes wrong. That isn't paranoia. That's pattern recognition on a deeper channel, the signal beneath the static. Your nervous system is evolving from a controller into a receiver. It's learning to listen instead of dictate. And the more you listen, the more reality responds. Not because you're manifesting in some magical ego-inflated way, but because coherence is the language the universe speaks back in. Imagine your life as a field of probabilities, always shifting, always shimmering with potential. When you're scattered, anxious, gripping tight to outcomes, your field is noisy, full of interference patterns. Signals get lost. Guidance can't reach you without distortion. But when you quiet down, even briefly, your field becomes clear like a lake settling after wind. In that clarity, the right path shows up not as a thought, but as a pull. A warm tug in the chest, a soft hum of yes. That hum is alignment. That hum is physics behaving like grace. And those moments you call breakthroughs, they're simply points where your internal frequency finally matched the timeline that was trying to meet you. All the times things didn't work weren't rejections. They were mismatches, static on the line. You weren't wrong, you were early. Or you were holding too hard. Or you were trying to walk through a door that didn't belong to the version of you who was gripping the handle. But the minute your state changes, your breath deepens, your body unclenches, your awareness widens, the door clicks open as if it had been unlocked the whole time, because it was. It just wasn't tuned to the person you were insisting on being. Here's the part most people never realize. The universe doesn't respond to control. It responds to coherence. Control screams, coherence whispers. Control narrows the world to a single demanded outcome. Coherence allows the outcome that matches who you're becoming. That's why letting go feels terrifying at first. It feels like surrendering the wheel, but what if you were never steering the river? What if you were only steering your posture within it? If you release the illusion of control, not the direction, just the tension, what you gain isn't chaos. It's clarity. The path becomes readable, the timing becomes precise. You become someone who doesn't force openings, you recognize openings. And when you step through them, it feels like fate, because in a way it is fate not as destiny carved in stone, but as resonance matching resonance. So all those strange sensations, those patterns repeating, those whispers that feel like the world tapping on your shoulder, they're not accidents and they're not hallucinations. They're the field learning to speak to you because you've finally become quiet enough to hear it. This is the reframe that changes everything. You were never meant to micromanage reality. You were meant to collaborate with it, to sense the current, to adjust your frequency, to let the river show its shape before deciding where to place your oar. And once you understand that, the world stops feeling like a puzzle you can't solve and starts feeling like a language you're finally learning to speak. This is the moment where your awakening stops being a mystery and becomes a map. A map written in synchronicities, sensations, delays that protect you, accelerations that surprise you, and timing that feels impossibly intelligent. You're not losing control, you're losing the illusion of control, and in the space that remains, something far wiser is finally allowed to guide. This is the part where something inside you shifts, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet confidence of a lock sliding open from the inside. You've been gathering signs, collecting synchronicities, sensing currents you can't quite explain, and now, finally, you're standing at the threshold of what all of it has been pointing toward. So breathe with me for a moment. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let the river in you rise to the surface where you can feel it. Because what you're about to understand isn't an idea. It's an activation. There's a moment, a specific one, when a person stops trying to manage their life like a battlefield and starts relating to it like a living field. Maybe you've already had glimpses of that moment. Those seconds where everything clicks, where the noise in your mind pulls back like a tide and you can finally hear the deeper sound beneath it. You know that feeling, the warm pressure in your chest, the sudden clarity, the gentle hum that moves through you like someone whispering, "This way." Most people ignore that hum. You're not supposed to ignore it anymore. Close your eyes for a breath. Feel your body, really feel it. The weight of your hands, the temperature of the air on your skin, the subtle pulse under your sternum. That's not just biology, that's signal, that's the field recognizing itself through you. Think of your awareness not as a flashlight you point outward, but as a lantern that lights from within, illuminating whatever stands in front of you with a kind of knowing that needs no proof. When that lantern turns on, you don't analyze reality, you resonate with it. And resonance is the doorway to the next level of your awakening. You've spent most of your life believing that transformation is something you achieve with effort. More discipline, more control, more grinding, more pushing, more tightening of your internal screws. But here's the revelation. The shift doesn't happen when you try. The shift happens when you remember. Remember what? That you're not separate from the current that guides you. That intuition isn't a superstition. It's the earliest form of truth. That your timing, your pull, your discomfort, your synchronicities, they're not random storms. They're navigation. Let me tell you something personal. Not as a sermon, but as a moment that changed everything for me. There was a night years ago when I was doing everything right. Planning, controlling, micromanaging every step of a project because I thought control was what made me strong. And still, nothing worked. Every email bounced, every call fell through. Every attempt felt like pushing into a wall that didn't even have the decency to push back. It just absorbed me. Like fog swallowing light, I remember sitting there, hands on my face, exhausted from trying to bend the world into my timeline. And then, out of nowhere, I stopped. Not because I was wise, because I was empty. And in that emptiness, something quiet rose up from a place I didn't know was still alive. A sentence, not spoken in words, but in sensation. Let me lead. I didn't know who the me was. I still don't need to. All I know is that the moment I loosened my grip, the moment I let breath replace tension, my phone lit up with the email I had been fighting for all week. Not because I pushed, not because I strategized, but because I aligned. That was the night I realized control was never my power. Coherence was. You've had moments like that. Maybe you didn't label them. Maybe you brushed them off. But you felt them, the job that arrived when you stopped obsessing, The relationship that healed when you softened. The opportunity that showed up on the day you finally stopped forcing. And right now, you're being asked to step into that state consciously, not accidentally, because the secret isn't a word you say. It's a state you embody, so here's the activation. Simple, quiet, but powerful if you allow it. Put your hand over your chest, right where the sternum meets the breath. No theatrics, no pressure, just contact. Feel the warmth, feel the weight. Now inhale slowly, like you're giving your lungs permission they forgot they had. Hold it for a second, not as control but as reverence. Then let it go, gentle as the river sliding around a stone, and whisper this sentence inside yourself, not loudly but clearly. I release the version of me that survives by force. Say it again, slower. Let the truth of it widen the space inside your ribs, and once more, even softer, so soft that only your cells can hear you. I allow the field to lead. Something in you shifted just now. You may not feel it fully yet, but the alignment has already begun. This isn't magic. This is physics meeting memory. This is your internal frequency unclenching, syncing with what was trying to reach you. And if you pay attention to your breath, you'll notice it's smoother. If you listen to your mind, you'll notice the thoughts have softened. If you tune into your chest, you'll notice a warmth, small but real, like a pilot light being relit after years of dimming. You might even feel a tingling in your hands, a heaviness in your shoulders, or a sudden calm that doesn't match the noise of your day. Don't analyze it. Don't make it dramatic, just recognize it. This is the field answering back. And from this place, this steadiness, this softness, this inner river, you'll make different choices. Not because you force yourself to, but because your inner compass has recalibrated. You no longer move from fear, you move from alignment. Can you feel it, that low hum in your chest, that subtle electricity along your spine, that quiet knowing that seems to say you're finally listening? That's not imagination, that's coherence, that's recognition, that's the password. And it was never a word, it was always a frequency. Hold this state for a moment. Let the river inside you expand. Notice how the mind tries to rush back in with plans and questions and old fears. That's okay. Thank it. Then let it stand to the side. Right now, you're learning a different kind of strength, one that doesn't tighten but tunes, one that doesn't control but collaborates, one that doesn't force timing but feels it. This is the moment of ascension. Not rising above your life, but sinking into it so deeply that you finally hear its guidance. The moment you stop gripping the oars long enough to feel the current. The moment you remember who you are beneath the noise. The moment the field recognizes itself through you and whispers the oldest truth you've ever known. You're not here to fight the river, you're here to move with it. You've come a long way to arrive here, far longer than this video, far deeper than these words, and now that something inside you has shifted, now that the river has begun to move through your chest instead of against it, this is where the energy settles. This is where the high tide of awakening recedes just enough for you to see the shoreline for what it really is. Because an activation is powerful, yes, but its real purpose is to open the space where meaning can finally land. So take a slow breath, softer than the last, and let your body ease into a kind of stillness that doesn't demand anything from you except honesty. Everything you've lived, All the friction, all the overwhelm, all the nights you felt like you were breaking open from the inside. None of it was random. None of it was wasted. It wasn't punishment and it wasn't failure, it was preparation. Think about the seasons of your life when you felt like you were losing direction. What if you weren't losing anything? What if the direction you were trying to force wasn't yours anymore? What if the collapse you feared was actually calibration? Your inner system adjusting itself to a frequency you weren't ready to admit you needed. You didn't fall apart because you were weak. You fell apart because the version of you that survived by controlling everything was outgrowing its usefulness. You were like a caterpillar tracing circles inside a leaf, believing that the world was shrinking when really, your body was preparing for wings you couldn't imagine yet. That's the strange mercy of these transitions. They feel like endings right up until the moment you recognize them as thresholds. And that's what you've been standing on without realizing it. A threshold. A quiet one. A patient one. A threshold that waited until you were tired enough of your own control to finally let something more intelligent guide the next step. Look back at every collapse that scared you. The job that dissolved, the relationship that cracked open, the plan that unraveled, the version of you that couldn't hold on any longer. At the time, it felt like the universe was taking something from you, but now, from this calmer riverbank, you can sense something different. Those collapses weren't punishment. They were invitations. They were the universe gently removing timelines you would have outgrown anyway. They were course corrections disguised as chaos. They were calibration, life tuning you to a frequency your old identity couldn't hold. And you know this is true because every time something fell apart, something else eventually aligned with more ease than you expected. Maybe you resisted it at first. Maybe you clung to older versions of yourself out of habit. But look at the person you became after each unraveling. Stronger, clearer, softer in ways you couldn't have predicted. You didn't get here by mistake. You got here by shedding what was never meant to guide you. You got here by surviving seasons of contraction so that expansion could finally feel like home. Now your job is simpler but deeper. Integrate the shift. Bring the river with you into the mundane parts of your day. Let the coherence you touched become the lens through which you move. Integration is where awakening stops being an idea and becomes a practice. And a practice isn't dramatic, it's steady, it's quiet, it's choosing the soft alignment over the loud panic, it's listening before reacting. It's asking what feels coherent instead of what looks impressive. It's replacing force with presence. Maybe it looks like taking one breath before you respond to something that would have triggered you last month. Maybe it looks like trusting your timing instead of bulldozing through red lights. Life is placing in your path. Maybe it looks like saying no to things that drain you, not because you're avoiding life, but because your energy is too sacred to bargain with anymore. Maybe it looks like taking a walk without headphones so you can actually hear your own frequency again. Maybe it looks like slowing down enough to notice when the river inside you pulls gently in a direction you didn't plan but instantly recognize as true. There is so much meaning in those small shifts. They're not subtle. They're seismic. They're how your new life begins, not with grand gestures, but with coherent decisions, with choosing the version of you that moves from clarity instead of fear, with honoring the quiet knowing that has always been there beneath the noise of your survival instincts. The river doesn't guide with force. It guides with pull. And integration is learning to follow that pull with less resistance each time. If you listen closely, you'll hear something else. Forgiveness. Forgiveness for the versions of you that clung too hard. Forgiveness for the years you spent overworking, overthinking, overplanning. Forgiveness for the emotional storms you blamed yourself for. Nothing was wrong with you. You were running old software in a world that was trying to upgrade you from the inside out. And every time you broke down, every time you questioned yourself, every time you felt too sensitive or too tired or too misaligned, those were signals, not flaws. Those were early warnings that the life you had built on control was too small for the soul you were becoming. Integration is where you gather those pieces and recognize them as teachings, where you realize that the universe was never saying no to you, it was saying not this way, where you understand that your sensitivity wasn't weakness but antennae, that your breakdowns weren't cracks but openings, that every moment you thought you were failing, you were actually learning to hear the river. And now, after everything, you're finally able to feel the meaning behind the mystery. You were never alone in this. You were being refined. Let that truth land in your body. Let it settle in your breath. Let it soften your shoulders the way water rounds a sharp stone. You're not the person who arrived at the beginning of this video. You're someone who has remembered something essential, something that was waiting behind the noise of your old life. And the meaning is simple but profound. You weren't failing. You were preparing. Every collapse was calibration. Every delay was protection. Every discomfort was guidance. Every moment of surrender was initiation. And now, with the river flowing through you again, you're ready to move forward, not by force but by frequency. This is the moment where everything rises to the surface. The awareness, the softness, the coherence, the river you've been remembering inside your own chest. Not as an idea, not as a metaphor, but as a state, a posture of being. You've walked through the hook, the validation, the reframe, the activation, the integration, and now you're standing somewhere you rarely stand, the quiet center of yourself. Feel it, the stillness, the clarity, the sense that the air around you is thicker, more intentional, almost like the moment right before dawn when the world hasn't decided to wake up yet. That's where transcendence begins, not in a mountaintop revelation, but in this exact stillness, this exact breath, this exact now. You might notice that something about your awareness has changed. The edges feel different, softer but sharper at the same time. You hear your thoughts without being swallowed by them. You feel your emotions without mistaking them for instructions. You sense the field around you with more honesty than ever before. And the strange thing is, nothing dramatic happened. No lightning strike, no divine announcement. Just an understanding, a quiet, grounded knowing that the part of you that has always tried to control everything no longer needs to run the show. The river isn't outside you, the river is you. And once you understand that, the entire architecture of your life starts to rearrange itself. Transcendence isn't escaping your human experience. It's inhabiting it so fully, so consciously that you stop confusing noise for truth. You stop looking for the universe out there. And you recognize it moving through your timing, your intuitions, your body, your breath. You begin to realize that the world doesn't respond to your will. It responds to your frequency. The person you've been becoming throughout this journey isn't a different self, it's the truer one. The one who moves from alignment instead of panic. The one who recognizes coherence faster. The one who knows the river's pull by feel alone. There's a moment in every awakening where the person you used to be tries to negotiate for its old job. It whispers, "Shouldn't you be worried? Shouldn't you be planning? Shouldn't you be preparing for something to go wrong?" But listen to the new voice rising now, calm, low, steady as water meeting stone. It says, "We don't live there anymore." And you don't. That old reality was built on fear disguised as responsibility. This new one is built on resonance disguised as ease. And that ease doesn't mean inaction, it means accuracy. It means you move when the river moves. You speak when the moment opens. You act when alignment clicks into place like a compass needle finding true north. Let yourself feel the magnitude of that. Not with excitement, but with gratitude. Gratitude that everything you survived brought you here. Not by accident, not by luck, but by design. Gratitude that every collapse you cursed was actually carving a path toward this coherence. Gratitude that the universe isn't asking you to be perfect, only present, only awake, only listening. The lightness you feel right now is not temporary. It's not a mood. It's not the effect of a video. It's your natural state when you stop strangling the guidance you've been begging for. This is who you are when you stop arguing with the river. So let me tell you something true, something you might not hear often, something you might not have ever heard said this plainly. You are the frequency you've been searching for. The clarity you crave is already inside you. The timing you hope for is already aligning. The path you fear missing is already unfolding under your feet. You're not becoming someone new. You're shedding the static that kept you from hearing yourself. The universe isn't testing you. It's collaborating with you. It's speaking in the language you're finally fluent enough to understand. And now, the embodiment, the applying, the living. Not in grand spiritual gestures, but in simple, coherent moments. When you wake tomorrow, you'll notice a difference. Not because the world changed, but because the way you meet the world did. You'll feel yourself breathing before you react. You'll sense your intuition before you override it. You'll hear the small no or the quiet yes before logic tries to negotiate with it. You'll begin to trust the subtle tug toward the right timing, the right room, the right conversation. You'll start catching yourself before you fall back into old patterns, not with judgment, but with a kind of gentle amusement. Like watching a child pick up an old toy they've outgrown. You'll feel the river again. And again, and again. And eventually, flow won't be something you chase. It'll be something you return to naturally because force just won't make sense anymore. Now breathe with me one last time. Slow, deep, steady. Let your spine lift just a little, like your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Let your chest open the way a door opens when someone gentle knocks. Let your awareness widen until the whole room feels like part of your body. And hear this, not as a metaphor, but as a truth you'll grow into every day from now on. You are not seeking the light. You are the light remembering itself. You are not following the current. You are the current becoming conscious. You are not surrendering control. You are surrendering the illusion of control so that true guidance can finally reach you. And if what you felt in this journey resonated, if something in your chest softened, if your breath deepened, if your awareness shifted even a few degrees, then consider this your invitation, not a call to subscribe to a channel, a call to subscribe to a frequency, to a way of moving through the world that honors the river instead of resisting it, a way of living that brings you into coherence with the life that's been trying to meet you halfway. If this message found you, it's because you were ready for it, and if you're ready for what comes next, the river already knows the way.